If any of you bite me, you are sleeping outside. Hannah Brooks had no idea why she said it aloud. Perhaps because speaking made the silence less frightening, or perhaps because 21 wolves were currently staring at her from the middle of a blizzard. 10 minutes earlier, Hannah had been preparing to lock her ranger cabin for the night when something scratched softly against the door. She had expected a frozen branch. Instead, she found a gray wolf standing on the porch beneath nearly 6 inches of fresh snow. Ice clung to its fur. Behind it waited another wolf, then another, their shapes emerging through the white darkness until Hannah stopped counting at 21. "You got to be kidding me," she whispered. The nearest wolf lowered its head. Hannah looked past them toward the forest. Wind drove snow between the pine trees, and the temperature had already fallen below 10 degrees Fahrenheit. Whatever had brought them here, sending them back into that cold was not an option. Hannah opened the door wider. "All right, barn first. Anyone who can walk follows me." She expected confusion. Instead, a massive black wolf stepped from the back of the group. He was larger than the others, with thick dark fur dusted white by snow and strange silver-gray eyes that seemed far too thoughtful. He looked at Hannah, then toward the barn. A moment later, the healthier wolves began moving. Hannah stared. "So, you are the one in charge." The black wolf held her gaze. She pointed toward the barn. "Good. Then make yourself useful." If Hannah had known that she was giving orders to Alpha King Caleb Blackwood, ruler of the Northern Territories, she might have chosen different words. But Caleb gave her no sign of who he was. He simply turned, and the wolves followed him through the snow. Hannah worked quickly. She filled the barn with dry straw, lit the small iron stove, carried out every spare blanket she owned, and checked each wolf for signs of dangerous cold exposure. Some needed warmth. Others needed water. All of them were exhausted. Hannah moved from one to the next until her fingers ached and damp strands of pale brown hair clung to her face. Nobody had ever called Hannah important. In the nearby settlement, she was simply the unmated Omega who preferred an isolated cabin to being reminded where she ranked. Out here, rank meant nothing. Cold did not care whether someone was Alpha, Beta, or Omega. Neither did Hannah. When she finally looked up, the black wolf was still standing near the barn door. He had not touched the food she had placed down. Instead, he watched while the weakest wolves settled closest to the stove. "You are waiting for them," Hannah realized. His ears shifted toward her. Something softened in her expression. "That is noble, but noble wolves can freeze too." She placed a bowl several feet in front of him. "Eat." The black wolf remained still. Hannah put both hands on her hips. "I have 21 unexpected guests, 1 stove, and enough food to make tomorrow extremely inconvenient. I am not arguing with you." For several seconds, silver-gray eyes studied her. Then Caleb Blackwood, a king obeyed by thousands, lowered his head and began to eat. Hannah smiled, completely unaware that the most powerful wolf in the kingdom had just followed her first command. By midnight, Hannah had stopped thinking of them as 21 wolves and started thinking of them as 21 separate problems that refused to occur in a convenient order. One needed more water. Another kept leaving the warm straw to check the barn door. 2 younger wolves had claimed the same blanket despite Hannah placing 3 others beside them. Through all of it, the black wolf remained watchful near the stove, his silver-gray eyes following Hannah as she moved. The storm had buried the path to the settlement beneath almost a foot of snow, and the wind continued shaking the old barn walls. Hannah knew no one would be coming tonight. That did not frighten her. She had lived alone in the ranger cabin for almost 3 years, ever since she finally accepted that loneliness in the woods felt kinder than loneliness inside a pack. In town, people rarely insulted her openly. They did not need to. An unmated Omega, without family influence, simply learned which conversations stopped when she approached, which decisions were made without asking her, and which useful skills somehow became less impressive when they belonged to her. Out here, none of that mattered. A wood stove did not care about rank. Snow did not respect titles. Hannah had learned to split firewood, repair a leaking roof, recognize dangerous weather, and make limited supplies last through a week of blocked roads. Tonight, Those ordinary skills mattered more than anyone's opinion of her. She crouched beside a smaller brown wolf and checked its ears and paws for lingering cold. "You're doing better," she murmured. The wolf relaxed into the straw. When Hannah stood, she found the black wolf beside her. She had not heard him approach. "You really need to stop doing that." His ears tilted forward. Hannah studied him more carefully. He was recovering faster than the others, but exhaustion still showed in the way he held his weight. "You should lie down." He looked toward the barn door. "They are safe," Hannah said. "You do not have to guard everyone every second." The words left her mouth before she realized how familiar they sounded. She had spent years doing exactly that with herself, staying useful so no one could call her a burden. The wolf's gaze remained on her, strangely steady. Hannah sighed.
"Fine.
Be stubborn." She returned to the cabin and came back carrying the quilt from her own bed. It was the last warm blanket she had. She spread it near the stove.
"There.
Royal accommodations." The black wolf stared at the quilt, then at Hannah. She laughed quietly. "Do not look offended. I am sleeping in a chair tonight." He did not move toward the blanket. Instead, he nudged it back toward her with his nose. Hannah blinked. "What are you doing?" He pushed it again. Something unexpectedly gentle tightened in her chest. "You think I need this more than you?" The wolf sat down. Hannah shook her head. "That is not how rescue works." She placed half the quilt over his back and wrapped the other half around her shoulders before sitting against the barn wall.
"There.
Compromise." After a moment, the black wolf settled beside her. Not touching, but close enough that she could feel his warmth through the quilt. Outside, the storm continued across the mountains. Inside, 20 other wolves slept safely around them. Hannah closed her eyes for only a moment, unaware that Caleb Blackwood was no longer wondering whether this forgotten Omega could keep his wolves alive. He was beginning to wonder why a woman with so little had given strangers everything she had. Morning arrived without sunlight. The storm had turned the windows of Hannah's cabin into pale rectangles of swirling white, and the snow outside had climbed high enough to cover the lower porch steps. Hannah woke in the barn with a stiff neck, half the quilt around her shoulders, and the black wolf already watching her. "You could at least pretend you were sleeping," she murmured. His silver-gray eyes remained fixed on her. Hannah stood, stretched, and began checking the others. All 20 wolves were warmer than they had been the night before. Several were already alert, and 2 younger ones followed Hannah around as if they had decided she belonged to them. "Do not get attached," she warned them. "I cannot afford 21 pets." The black wolf made a quiet sound behind her. Hannah turned. Was that judgment? His ears shifted. "You are becoming difficult." She carried water from the cabin, refilled the stove, then began preparing food. Her supplies were never meant for this many guests. Hannah counted portions twice, cutting everything smaller so the wolves that needed the most energy could eat first. When she carried the first bowls into the barn, the animals moved toward her, but one low sound from the black wolf stopped them. Hannah stared as the wolves settled again. "You really are their leader." He looked at her. "Then help me." She pointed toward 2 stronger wolves. "Those 2 can carry something." The black wolf turned his head. Moments later, both wolves followed Hannah toward the covered wood pile. She stopped in the doorway and laughed. That should not have worked, yet it kept happening. When Hannah mentioned needing space near the stove, the black wolf guided the healthier animals farther back. When a young gray wolf became restless near the door, he lay beside it until it settled. He understood tone, gestures, and sometimes instructions. Hannah had barely finished speaking. By afternoon, suspicion had begun replacing amusement. Hannah crouched beside him, while the others rested. "What exactly are you?" The wolf blinked slowly. "Because normal wolves do not organize firewood." He looked away. That was suspicious. Hannah reached toward his neck, wondering whether she might find a collar beneath the thick fur. The instant her fingers brushed him, something warm moved through her palm. Not heat from the stove. Something quieter.
Deeper.
The black wolf became perfectly still. Hannah pulled her hand back. "Did you feel that?" His eyes returned to hers. For one strange second, the barn seemed too quiet. Then a gust rattled the doors. breaking the moment. Hannah stood quickly.
Right.
Food. She returned to the cabin and opened the pantry. Her stomach sank. After breakfast and the previous night's feeding, there was far less left than she had hoped. The road could remain blocked another day. Maybe two. She counted what remained, then counted again. Enough for the wolves if she was careful. Not enough for everyone. Hannah closed the pantry door and pressed her cold fingers against her forehead. She could manage. She had managed with less before. When she returned to the barn carrying the evening portions, the black wolf watched her distribute every bowl. 1, 2, 5, 10, 15, 20. Hannah placed the final bowl before him. 21. She smiled tiredly.
There.
Everyone eats. But Caleb did not lower his head. His silver-gray eyes moved from the food to Hannah's empty hands, and for the first time, Hannah had the uncomfortable feeling that the mysterious wolf had noticed something she was trying very hard to hide. The black wolf did not touch his food. Hannah pretended not to notice at first. She moved between the other wolves, checking water and adding another piece of firewood to the stove, but every time she glanced back, the 21st bowl remained untouched. "You need to eat," she finally said. Caleb lowered his nose toward the bowl, then pushed it across the wooden floor toward her. Hannah stared.
No.
He pushed it again. Absolutely not. His silver-gray eyes moved toward her empty hands. Hannah felt her stomach tighten. That is wolf food. Caleb sat down. And I am not hungry. The lie sounded weak even to her. His ears tilted forward. Hannah sighed. You are very judgmental for someone who showed up uninvited. Caleb nudged the bowl once more. She almost laughed, but the gentleness of the gesture stopped her. He had noticed. With 20 other wolves needing warmth, food, and attention, somehow this strange black wolf had noticed that she had saved nothing for herself. Hannah crouched in front of him. Listen, I can make oatmeal later. You need the calories more than I do. Caleb remained perfectly still. You are not going to win this.
Nothing.
Hannah narrowed her eyes. I have survived 3 winters alone. I can outstubborn a wolf. Caleb slowly lowered himself onto the floor without eating. Hannah stared at him for several seconds before throwing up her hands.
Fine.
Compromise. She returned to the cabin, scraped together the last oats, and cooked herself a small bowl with water. When she came back and sat beside the stove, Caleb finally began eating. Ridiculous, Hannah muttered between spoonfuls. You waited until I had food. His tail moved once against the straw. Hannah pointed her spoon at him. Do not look pleased with yourself. For the first time since the wolves arrived, she allowed herself to eat slowly. Around her, the barn was warm enough that several wolves had fallen asleep. The wind still pressed against the walls, but its voice had weakened. Caleb finished his portion and settled near Hannah, close enough to watch the door and her at the same time. She studied him over the rim of her bowl. You take care of them. His gaze shifted toward the sleeping wolves. But apparently, you also take care of strangers who boss you around. Caleb looked back at her. Hannah smiled faintly. Maybe we have that problem in common. A strange warmth moved through her chest, similar to what she had felt when she touched his fur earlier. She dismissed it as exhaustion. By late afternoon, the snowfall finally began to thin. Hannah stepped outside and found the world buried beneath nearly 2 feet of white. The road was still invisible, but the sky had brightened beyond the mountains. Tomorrow, she said when Caleb joined her on the porch. If the wind stays down, someone will probably reach us tomorrow. She expected relief. Instead, the black wolf became strangely still. Hannah looked at him. What? His attention had shifted toward the distant tree line. Hannah followed his gaze, but saw only snow-covered pines. Then, faintly, she heard something beneath the wind. A distant engine. Another followed. Hannah's shoulders relaxed. See? Help. Caleb did not move. Behind them, several wolves rose inside the barn as though they recognized the sound. Hannah smiled and stepped toward the porch stairs, unaware that the approaching vehicles were not searching for 21 ordinary wolves. They were searching for a missing king. The first vehicle appeared through the trees just before sunset, moving slowly along the buried road with chains wrapped around its tires. 2 more followed behind it. Hannah stood on the porch with one hand shielding her eyes from the blowing snow, relieved until she noticed the dark insignia painted across the lead vehicle.
Territorial Wardens.
The black wolf stood beside her, silent and watchful. "Looks like your ride is here," Hannah murmured. His silver-gray eyes remained fixed on the approaching convoy. Within minutes, several men stepped into the snow. Marcus Hale climbed from the first vehicle wearing the heavy charcoal coat of a senior warden. Hannah recognized him immediately. Marcus had spent years enforcing pack regulations around the mountain settlements, and he had never hidden his belief that Omegas were safest when following instructions. "Hannah Brooks," he called. "Still me." Marcus reached the porch, then looked past her toward the barn. His expression changed when he saw the wolves inside. "How many?" 21. "You brought 21 unknown wolves onto protected land?" Hannah blinked. They were freezing. Marcus walked toward the barn and stopped when he noticed a silver marking fastened around the neck of one gray wolf. His entire posture stiffened. He checked another, then another. "These are royal wolves." Hannah looked at him. "Royal." Marcus turned sharply toward his men. "Prepare the vehicles. We move immediately." Hannah stepped between him and the barn entrance.
No.
Marcus stared at her. "What did you say?" "Several of them are still recovering. The road is covered with ice and night is coming. They need another few hours of warmth at minimum. You are not qualified to make that decision. I kept them warm for 2 nights. Marcus lowered his voice. "You are an Omega living alone in a ranger cabin, Hannah. You should have reported this instead of pretending you knew what you were doing." The old words landed exactly where they always had. Stay useful. Stay quiet. Let someone with rank decide whether your judgment mattered. Hannah felt the familiar sting, but she did not move. The radio tower went down during the storm. The road disappeared. Reporting them was not an option. "Then step aside now." Hannah looked toward the wolves. Some were standing. Others remained curled in the warm straw. "Not until the weaker ones can travel safely." Marcus exhaled impatiently. "This is not your decision. Their condition is my responsibility until someone qualified examines them." "And you believe that person is you?" Hannah met his eyes. "Right now, I am the person who is here." Silence followed. Then the black wolf walked forward. He did not growl. He did not bare his teeth. He simply placed himself between Hannah and Marcus. The other wardens became still. Marcus stared at the enormous wolf, finally noticing the unusual silver-gray eyes and the way every other animal in the barn watched him for direction. "Move the animal," Marcus ordered. No one did. Hannah looked down at the black wolf. "It is all right. I can handle this." Caleb glanced back at her. Something in his expression made her heart beat faster. Marcus stepped sideways. Caleb matched him. "Whose wolf is this?" Marcus demanded. Hannah almost laughed despite the tension. "I was hoping you could tell me." From inside the barn came the soft movement of paws against straw. One by one, the 20 wolves rose. Not threatening, not restless, simply attentive. Every gaze settled on the black wolf standing before Hannah. Marcus's face slowly lost its color. He looked again at Caleb, then at the royal markings on the others. Understanding arrived before Hannah could see it. Marcus took one careful step backward. "No," he whispered. Hannah frowned. "What?" Marcus did not answer her. Instead, he lowered his head toward the black wolf. Hannah stared at him in confusion as the other wardens followed. Around her, the mountains seemed suddenly silent. She looked at Caleb. "Why are they bowing to you?" Hannah's question disappeared into the winter air, but no one answered it. Marcus remained bowed. The other wardens stood behind him with their heads lowered, and even the 20 wolves inside the barn had become perfectly still. Hannah looked from them to the black wolf beside her. "All right," she said slowly. "Someone needs to explain this." Caleb held her gaze for one long moment, then turned toward the barn. He disappeared inside, leaving Hannah staring after him. Marcus finally lifted his head. Miss Brooks, you should wait. I've been waiting for 2 days to learn why 21 wolves appeared at my door. She folded her arms. I am finished waiting. A few minutes later, the side door of the barn opened. A tall white man stepped into the snow wearing spare clothing one of the wardens had quickly provided. His dark hair was still damp from melted snow, and his silver-gray eyes were unmistakable. Hannah forgot how to breathe. Those eyes had watched her carry firewood. Those eyes had silently argued over food. Those eyes had been beside her beneath half a quilt while she complained about unexpected guests. Marcus bowed again. Your Majesty. Hannah stared at the stranger, then at Marcus, then back at the stranger. Your Majesty? Caleb Blackwood stopped several feet away, giving her space. Hannah. Her eyes widened. You know my name? A trace of amusement touched his expression. You have been talking to me for 2 days. Heat rushed into her face despite the cold. She remembered every command she had given him.
Eat.
Lie down. Make yourself useful. You are the Alpha King. Yes. And I told you that if you bit me, you were sleeping outside. Mason Carter, who had just climbed from the second vehicle, abruptly turned away to hide a smile. Caleb's mouth almost curved. Your rules were very clear. Hannah pressed her fingers to her forehead. Why did you not tell me? Caleb's expression became serious. Our group was inspecting emergency winter routes when the whiteout separated us from the support convoy. Several wolves were exhausted, and shifting back too soon would have consumed energy they needed to recover. Staying in wolf form was safer. Hannah looked toward the barn. That explained the silence, the obedience, and why none of them had revealed themselves. So, all 21 of you are royal wolves? Members of my winter patrol. Caleb glanced toward Marcus. And Hannah was correct. The weaker members are not traveling tonight. Marcus stiffened. Your Majesty, I only intended to return everyone to safety. She already did that. Caleb's voice remained quiet, but the words carried across the porch. While the roads were closed, she gave us shelter, warmth, food, and the last blanket from her own bed. Hannah looked down, suddenly uncomfortable with everyone watching her. Marcus began. I did not know who was here. Caleb's gaze sharpened. Neither did she. Silence followed. That is why it matters. Hannah looked at him. Caleb had seen Marcus dismiss her because she was an Omega. He had also seen her help 21 strangers without knowing whether any of them could ever repay her. Caleb turned toward the wardens. No wolf leaves until Hannah says they are ready. Marcus hesitated only a second. Yes, Your Majesty. Hannah blinked. Yesterday, people had barely listened when she spoke. Now an Alpha King had just placed the decision back in her hands. Caleb looked at her again, and the strange warmth returned beneath her ribs. This time, she could not blame the stove. There is one more thing, he said quietly. Hannah's pulse quickened. What? Caleb glanced toward the barn, then back at the Omega who had opened her door to him when he had been nothing more than a freezing wolf in the snow. I could have revealed myself earlier. Hannah became very still. Then why did you not? Caleb's question remained between them as snow drifted quietly from the barn roof. Hannah searched his face, still trying to reconcile the man before her with the black wolf who had shared her quilt and refused to eat until she did. You could have told me, she said. By this morning, you were strong enough. I was. Hannah folded her arms. Then why wait? Caleb looked toward the barn, where his patrol rested safely beneath the blankets she had gathered. At first, I stayed in wolf form because shifting would have wasted energy. After I recovered, I stayed because I was watching you. Hannah's expression cooled. That sounds worse when you say it aloud. I know. His answer came without defensiveness. But everywhere I go, people know who I am before they know me. They open doors because I am king. They offer food because I am king. They become kinder, quieter, and more generous because they believe I am watching. His silver-gray eyes settled on hers. You thought I was a stray wolf. Hannah glanced at the enormous tracks near the porch. A very demanding stray wolf. Caleb almost smiled. And still you gave away your food, your blankets, You're firewood. You cared for the weakest members of my patrol before yourself. Hannah shifted uncomfortably. They needed help. Exactly.
His voice softened.
You did not know anyone important was watching. Something about the word important bothered her. They were important. Caleb became still. Hannah nodded toward the barn. Every one of them, even when I thought they were ordinary wolves. For a moment, Caleb simply looked at her. Then he lowered his head slightly, not as a king acknowledging a subject, but as a man accepting a correction. You are right. Marcus stood several yards away with the wardens, quiet now. Hannah noticed him watching her differently, and she disliked how quickly respect had appeared after Caleb's identity became known. Do not make them treat me differently because you were here, she said. Caleb followed her gaze. I cannot control why people change. You are the Alpha King. I can issue orders. That is not the same thing. Hannah studied him. It was the first answer he had given that sounded less like power and more like understanding. Caleb stepped closer, still leaving respectful distance between them. But I can change what the kingdom rewards. Hannah frowned. What does that mean? It means someone who kept 21 wolves alive through a mountain whiteout should not be dismissed because she is an Omega. Before Hannah could answer, Ruth Bennett emerged from the third vehicle carrying a medical case. The older healer had finished examining several members of the patrol. She approached Caleb, then unexpectedly looked at Hannah. Your Majesty, may I see your hand? Caleb offered it. Ruth checked his pulse, but her expression shifted. Interesting. Hannah immediately became concerned. Is something wrong?
No.
Ruth looked between them. Quite the opposite. Caleb's eyes narrowed slightly. Ruth turned to Hannah. Would you give me your hand as well? Hannah hesitated, then extended it. Ruth did not bring their hands together. She merely checked Hannah's pulse. A strange warmth immediately moved across Hannah's palm, stronger than before. Caleb inhaled softly. His wolf stirred beneath his skin, not restless, but unmistakably alert. Ruth noticed. Her eyes widened with recognition.
What? Hannah asked.
Ruth released her hand. Nothing I should explain before I am certain. Hannah disliked that answer immediately. Caleb apparently did too. Ruth. Tomorrow, the healer said firmly. After everyone has rested. She walked toward the barn before either could object. Hannah looked at Caleb. Your people are extremely mysterious. You ordered their king to eat from a bowl. And he needed it. Caleb laughed, warm and unguarded. Hannah felt the strange pull beneath her ribs again. This time Caleb's expression changed at the exact same moment. Neither spoke. Whatever Ruth had noticed, they had both just felt it. By morning, the storm had moved east, leaving the mountains beneath a clear blue sky and almost 2 feet of untouched snow. Hannah had slept for 4 hours before Ruth Bennett knocked on the cabin door. Caleb stood several feet behind the healer, dressed in borrowed winter clothing, his silver-gray eyes carrying the same quiet attention Hannah remembered from his wolf. Ruth entered and placed her medical case on the table. Everyone is recovering well, she said. The weaker patrol members can travel this afternoon if the roads remain stable. Hannah felt immediate relief. Good. Ruth studied her for a moment. Now we can discuss what happened yesterday. Hannah glanced at Caleb. The mysterious hand thing? That is one description. Ruth smiled faintly. Among wolves, there are rare cases when recognition begins before either person consciously understands it. The wolf senses compatibility first. Hannah became very still. Caleb did not interrupt. You mean a mate bond, Hannah said. Ruth nodded. I believe the first signs are present, but a bond is not a command. Recognition and choice are not the same thing. Hannah appreciated those words more than Ruth could know. She looked at Caleb. Did you know?
No.
Not even when you were in wolf form? I knew being near you felt different. I did not know why. Hannah remembered the warmth in her palm, the strange pull beneath her ribs, and the way Caleb had pushed his food toward her when he realized she had nothing. Ruth quietly gathered her case. I will give you both some privacy. After she left, Hannah moved toward the window. Outside, the wardens were clearing snow around the vehicles while several recovered wolves stretched near the barn. This changes things, Hannah said. Only if you want it to. She turned. Caleb remained near the door instead of moving closer. You are the Alpha King. People will expect something. People expect many things from me. His expression softened. They do not get to decide this. Hannah searched his face. What do you want? Caleb considered the question before answering. I want to know the woman who gave 21 strangers her food without asking their names. Hannah almost smiled. That woman also threatened to make you sleep outside. I remember. And ordered you to eat. Repeatedly. Her smile appeared despite herself. Then Caleb's voice became quieter. What do you want, Hannah? No one with power had ever asked her that so simply. She looked toward the settlement beyond the snowy trees. I want Omegas like me to stop being treated as if our only useful quality is obedience. I want winter shelters on these routes. Emergency food. Radios that work when storms take down the main tower. Training for people who live far from pack centers. Caleb listened without interrupting. Then help me build it. Hannah blinked. You are serious. You kept my patrol alive with one stove, an old barn, and supplies meant for one person. I would be foolish not to listen to you. The warmth returned beneath her ribs, but this time Hannah understood that destiny was only part of it. Caleb respected what she had done before either of them understood the bond. She had cared for him before knowing his crown existed. Caleb extended his hand but stopped halfway, leaving the distance for her to cross. Hannah looked at it, then placed her hand in his. Warmth spread gently across her palm. Caleb's wolf stirred beneath his skin, peaceful and certain. Hannah smiled. This does not mean you get special treatment. Caleb's eyes brightened. I would expect nothing less. Outside, 20 wolves waited to return home. Inside the little cabin, their king had finally found something he had never been able to command, a choice freely given. 3 months later, the first snow of the new season began falling over the mountains just after noon. Hannah Brooks stood outside a newly built emergency shelter 6 miles north of her old ranger cabin, checking the radio system for the 3rd time. The shelter held blankets, medical supplies, firewood, food, and enough equipment to support stranded travelers through several winter nights. There were already 5 more shelters operating across the northern routes, with another 7 scheduled before the deepest winter arrived. Caleb had kept his promise. More importantly, he had listened when Hannah insisted the program should be led by people who understood remote communities rather than nobles who had only seen mountain roads from carriage windows. She now directed the Winter Rescue Network alongside Ruth Bennett, training Omegas, Betas, and Alphas by skill rather than rank. Marcus Hale had even become one of the program's strongest supporters after learning that respect given only in the presence of a king was not respect at all. Hannah was locking the supply cabinet when she heard scratching at the shelter door. She froze.
Slowly, she turned. No.
Another scratch followed. Hannah opened the door. A massive black wolf sat outside beneath the falling snow, silver-gray eyes watching her with unmistakable innocence. Behind him stood 20 more wolves. Hannah stared at the familiar group. Absolutely not. Caleb tilted his head. Do you understand how long it took me to clean the barn last time? His tail moved once against the snow. Several wolves behind him seemed suspiciously pleased with themselves. Hannah put both hands on her hips. And I know for a fact every one of you has a perfectly good home. Caleb remained seated. Hannah tried to look stern. She failed.
Fine.
Come inside before you cover the entire porch with snow. The 20 wolves moved past her in orderly fashion. Caleb waited until the last one entered, exactly as he had months earlier. Hannah noticed. Some things about him had never changed. Later, after Caleb had shifted privately and changed into the clothing stored for him at the shelter, he joined Hannah beside the stove. You counted them, did you not? He asked. 21. You remembered. I still have nightmares about feeding all of you. Caleb smiled. We brought our own supplies this time. Hannah looked toward the neatly packed bags near the wall. You are learning. I have an excellent teacher. He offered her a mug of hot cider and sat beside her. Their bond had grown quietly over the months, without ceremonies or demands. Caleb visited whenever royal duties allowed. Hannah visited Blackwood Castle when rescue planning required it. Neither rushed the other. The kingdom knew she was his recognized mate, but Hannah's work belonged to her, and Caleb made certain everyone understood the difference. Outside, snow gathered against the windows. Inside, 20 wolves rested near the stove while their king sat beside the Omega who had once believed no one important noticed her. Caleb reached for Hannah's hand but waited, as he always did. She placed her fingers in his, and warmth moved gently between them. "You know," Caleb said, "the first time you opened your door, you threatened to make me sleep outside." Hannah smiled. "The rule still applies." "Even to the Alpha King?" "Especially to the Alpha King." Caleb laughed, and Hannah looked around the crowded shelter. Months ago, she had opened her door because 21 strangers were cold. She had expected nothing in return. Yet that simple choice had changed winter roads, changed how her kingdom saw Omegas, and changed 2 lives that should never have crossed. The first time, Hannah had opened the door because kindness demanded it. This time, with Caleb's hand warm in hers and 20 familiar wolves safely sheltered from the snow, she understood that she was opening it because she had finally found where she belonged.